All right, in May, you guys may remember that I had a car. You guys rode along with me while I diagnosed it. It came in for a misfire. The customer's complaint of the misfire was that it was jerky and whatnot under high. Oh, it is hot. Yeah, but jerky, misfires, rough drivability issues, rough running. Under acceleration while they were driving. We felt surges. It ended up being a failing or failed plug, which was of the wrong type that was installed rather recently. Somebody was looking for an issue. And this just goes to show, and I'll probably do a different video about that sometime later, about getting all the information, relevant information, okay? Somebody put plugs in an engine, excuse me, and nobody asked why. Okay, what was the issue then? Why did you start? Why did you start with chasing whatever drivability with plugs? Needless to say, the wrong plugs were installed. We had an issue with a plug in cylinder number 3. It was masquerading itself as a random and multiple misfire. We put plugs in it, adjusted the valve lash. Vehicle left was fine. Multiple notes, and, plus this videography, kind of bore witness to the diagnosis and the repair. We are now in July. Sometime in June, according to a post-it in the customer's handwriting, the car did overheat. And at startup now, it jerks and misfires kind of like it did before. And when I say did before, it's misfiring and jerking, but the circumstances under which it's doing it are different. So in this instance, here's what happened. You started cold, it misfires for a bit, and it clears up. All right? I didn't notice this until today. Yesterday when I looked at it, I just got a car that drove in with that complaint. And knowing what I'd done before, I'm not looking for an ignition problem now. I'm thinking even if I do have to, I should probably look, especially in light of the misfire information. I'm sorry, the overheat information. Maybe I should go that route. So what I've done here, and I really can't figure out how to switch or reverse angles on my camera here. I got a little apparatus set up, and what we're going to do, if you bear with me for a second, I have a cylinder leakage tester here, and technically what that's supposed to do, and not where I'm supposed to be, what that's supposed to do is measure the amount of compressed charge leakage that you have in a cylinder. Okay, just basically an efficiency, a rating for the cylinder. Kind of gives us, I can speak, a diagnostic insight into the condition of the engine or that cylinder. And it is supposed to have, I should probably show it to you, right? All right, so there it is. And it, anything, I guess from 0% to close to 40%, you can still run the engine. All right. So I'm going to do that because I want to see if we have any issues here. I did check for codes. It now has misfire codes in cylinders 1 and 2. Remember, our misfire to begin with was multiple and random, and we found out that we had an intermittent failure with number 3's spark plug. In this instance now we have misfires on cylinders 1 and 2, and I need to do a little bit more here. I've already done this, but I want to take you guys through this only because one of the issues that I have is a lack of communication between the person who owns owns a car and has the issue, the person who fixes it, and the middleman. Okay. As important as the job is, a lot of people don't take it that seriously. Service advisors really need to make sure that if they do not understand all the issues at hand, they make sure that these issues are communicated correctly to the customer. Unfortunately, they had a hard time of selling this job to the customer now, because to the customer the symptoms are identical, and they are of the belief that they had paid for this fix and the car wasn't fixed, so we should fix it. Now I'm going to, at some point when I edit this, recap the diagnosis from before, the parts of it that we used to definitively diagnose it. But I know I'm rambling here. I thought I had this set up all the way. I currently do not, and I'm scrambling here. But what I'm trying to do, I'm going to show you how I found that her overheating issue, or her overheating incident in June, has set up a misfire scenario now that is unrelated to the failed ignition component issue she had before. And you know, if you can show you're working, if you would, definitively, it's really hard for somebody to dispute your findings. All right, so what I want to do here is make sure that the cylinder is closed. We had misfires in cylinders 1 and 2. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to turn the crank, all right, down there, and it's a really cheap type of way to watch where the piston is. But I know that when, let's see if I can, you guys might not be able to see what's going on there. All right, but anyway, I'm going to see if I can't get, all right, I want to have cylinder number 2 on top dead. If I have done that correctly, then we will have very little, yes, okay, so I've done that. Cylinder number 2, all right, is where I'm over there, and you're gonna have to excuse the little bootleg piston position thing there. But if you look now, we have a little over 20% leakage, which is okay for that cylinder, okay? I like that. The problem here is you have to understand what a sealed cylinder is. It means all the valves are closed, intake and exhaust, right? The piston rings, right? Even with their end gap, they have minimal leak by, whatever, by them. And all the gaskets and seals are sealing. So technically, this 20% should technically be maybe a little bit going by the rings and the end gaps. What I found yesterday, and this is why we have this guy here, is if you look in there, now remember, this is under pressure, it's regulated, but this is pressure. I want you to see something. Every now and again, oh, anybody see that? I don't know if you can see that there. Make sure you guys can see it. Maybe I need a flashlight. I need a flashlight. I want to make sure that this is on video. All right, so here we are, looking at the coolant. Make sure you guys don't get glare. Ah, I knew it. Best we get glare. There's no way to do this. All right, here we go. And bloop bloop. And bloop 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 bloop. And a little bit more bloop bloop bloop. Maybe one more, and I will tell you what this means. It takes a little while. Oh, perfect. Like watching paint dry, or a. Wait a minute. There we go. All right, that was satisfying. All right. So in this instance, here's what's happening. Your cooling system, all right, and the water jacket that surrounds the piston that should keep them cool or within operating temperature. Ooh, doing a lot now. Is sealed off from the combustion chamber. Okay. What ends up happening if you overheat is, you know, the things expand, but since they're bolted down in place, they like to flex and try to expand, but they're pinned down. The cylinder head's pinned down to the block of bolts. But in between the two of them is a gasket. If there's not even pressure on that gasket around the combustion chamber, right? The pressures from the combustion chamber, especially at that temperature, can, bubbling a lot now, can cause the flame furnace to burn through the head gasket and cause it to fail. And basically you'll have combustion going right into the cooling jacket, right? Now what ends up happening, you know, during this time is you could, you know, vaporize coolant and lose some over time, which is something else I noticed yesterday that I, you know, didn't start with, but when I was checking this yesterday after seeing the overheating note, I noticed it was low on coolant, right? Never really a good sign, but you know, I'm thinking, okay, I'm not going to jump to conclusions. It could overheat if the coolant was low. I should probably be looking for where that went. The thing about this now is that at startup, because there is now this break in the gasket, coolant can get into the cylinder, and that's what causes the misfires that clear out on startup. Okay, while this thing is hot, all right, there's pressure in the cooling system. You cut the engine off, that pressure in the cooling system can force coolant into the cylinder. As the engine cools down, not much coolant gets in there. You go to start it up, and because it's not designed to burn coolant, you'll have several misfires until all that stuff is burned out of the cylinder and then she runs fine. The problem with this is that it will continue to burn coolant and it'll be low and overheat like a vicious cycle. And it'll continue to misfire, obviously it'll get worse. So we need a cylinder head gasket. The problem here is that had the original misfire incident where we found bad plugs, had it been investigated further as to why, okay, and you know, a lot of times I really can't blame writers sometimes, because it's almost like any dysfunctional relationship. Some people need to be asked the right questions in order to give you the answers that you require or need, and a lot of times that's not forthcoming. It doesn't happen. Why were new plugs put in? What is wrong with this car? It's very possible that this thing had a head gasket issue from way back when. Why was the coolant, you know, what precipitated the overheating? Okay, if I had to put the question forward, you know, to put the question forward, what came first, the chicken or the egg? The overheating, what was the initial complaint? Even though we have different cylinders doing different things now, I wonder if the plugs weren't put in to combat a misfire issue in cylinders 1 and 2, an issue that didn't manifest when it was here while we were diagnosing the misfire from this bad plug. And now that we fixed the issue that was caused by somebody else and diagnosing whatever it had before, we're back to the original issue, if that makes sense. You have issue A, somebody tries to fix it by doing process B. Process B has now caused a separate but similar issue that is now repaired, okay, by process C, but now during that, nobody's addressed process A. So we're gonna have to do that now. It's going to get a cylinder head gasket replaced. I think at this point I should also replace the thermostat. We're gonna send the head out, make sure there's no issues with it. And at some point, I'm gonna have to write a litany of questions for the customer to answer as to what could have precipitated, you know, any of this. And I know the car doesn't have a lot of miles, but I don't know. This is one of the problems we constantly deal with here. People want to know what caused X, Y, Z. I don't have the full history of the car, and a lot of times without that information, there's no way to know. Why would this engine overheat? Low coolant, yes. What caused it? There are no leaks. Okay, right now the way it stands, it's low on coolant because the failed cylinder head gasket has been vaporizing it, okay? Did the overheating issue cause the head gasket to fail, or did the head gasket spontaneously fail and then cause the car to overheat? There's no definitive way without enough of background to know that. But anyway, enough of my rambling. Keep it 100. This is 100 Tech. Hopefully we get to the bottom of this sooner than later. Bye.